Yeah, and depending upon where the person is, in terms of, we've got a minute or so. About half a minute. Yeah, 9:59. Okay. All right, just do this. Okay? That's for you. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, he's ready. Roger's ready. Yeah.
Good morning and welcome to the Universalist Church, in which love is the Spirit. We are so glad you are here today, whether you're here in the building or anywhere in the world. I'm Steve Lieben, a member of our Board of Trustees. If you are a visitor, we hope you'll sign our guest book or visit our webpage, www.westhartforduu.org, to learn more about our ongoing community. There you can use the contact page to get onto our electronic mailing list. Our electronic communications are the best way for us to stay connected. We look forward to helping you become part of the Universalist Church community. We are using this summer to learn how to do worship in person and online at the same time. This is going to be something new for us all. While we keep moving toward the end of the pandemic, we're also going to keep adapting to the moment. So for now, we're going to have our soloist or small groups sing our hymns for us. We hope to hear good news about congregational singing, but until then, I will ask you to listen and participate silently until we hear that singing together is okay once again. Thank you for your graciousness as we learn another new way to be together. After worship, we will have the fellowship hour will only be online. And now, I invite you to take a moment to make your mobile phone silent, turn off your dreaded email, and settle in for worship.
Come on, shower the You can run, but you can't hide. This is why you don't want. Tell me what you gonna do with your foolish pride when you're just sitting there by yourself and you're all alone. Won't you tell somebody just how you feel? You can feel it in its feet. You know, I think it's so true what they say about this squeaky wheel. Honey, come on and get yourself some grease. Yeah, yeah. Shower people you love. Show them just how you feel. Yeah. Things are gonna be just so much better if you only will. Come on, shower the people you love. Show us how you feel. Things are gonna work out fine if you only will. You only will. Come on, shower people you love.
If you happen to have a chalice at home, please light your chalice with me at this point. And now, let us say the responsive reading together. It's number 556 in your gray hymnal. I will say the non-italics, and I ask you to say the italics. These roses under my window make no reference to former roses or to better ones. They are for what they are. They exist with God today. Before a leaf bud has burst, its whole life acts. In the full-blown flower there is no more. In the leafless root there is no less. But we postpone or remember. We do not live in the present, but with reverted eye lament the past, or heedless of the riches that surround us, stand on tiptoe to foresee the future. And now, join me in speaking the words of our affirmation, our covenant. It's in the description and in the chat. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This morning, our time for all ages is an adapted version of "What Time Is It, Mr. Crocodile?" by Judy Sierra. Each day near brisk Bristlecone Bay, where the wifflefish play, Mr. Cecil Crocodile Esquire sits at his desk and plans his day. His daily schedule looks like this. Does that look like anyone else's in this sanctuary or at home? Maybe you don't write it down quite so neatly, or maybe you carry it in your head or on your cell phone. But at 9 a.m., the 5 monkeys who Cecil Crocodile considers pesky critters are jumping in and out of his bubble bathtub and are squirting his toothpaste on the floor. Cecil says, "It's time to wiggle my toes and time to put on my clothes. It's time to brush every tooth until they sparkle and glow." At 10 a.m., those monkeys are hanging from the ceiling fan, eating bananas, while Mr. Crocodile goes to the Stingray Cafe to start off his day with a barnacle bagel and a sea slug souffle. It's now 11 a.m., and Cecil is going to plunge into Bristlecone Bay because it's now time to splash and play and practice his crocodile water ballet. However, the monkeys join him, building sandcastles and riding surfboards next to him as he plays. At noon, Cecil pulls out his skateboard and rolls into town because it is now time to twirl round and round and round. And you get dizzy doing that. It's time to skate right side up. But the monkeys come in with their boards too, and now, yikes! Mr. Cecil is skating upside down. At 1 p.m., with a little anger in his heart, Mr. Crocodile goes to his town library and takes a quick look for a good recipe book. He hurries to find the right book because he has monkeys to cook. Now it is 2, and shopping at the Crocodile Mark is what Cecil will do. So he heads to shop, and the monkeys go too. He gets to the counter and wonders how 5 bunches of bananas have gotten into his cart. It's now 3. And this is not tea time for Cecil, but bubble bath time and snack time. He sits in his tub filled with bubbles, not his bubble filled with tub. That doesn't work out so well. And sulks and dreams and plots and schemes. The monkeys surround him, jumping and sliding on the bar of soap. They also make silly faces in the mirror in the bathroom, and one of them covers himself with the baby powder from the counter. "Now it's time to get busy," says Cecil. It's time for Cecil to try to capture his meal as he sits at the wheel of his marvelous monkey mobile. The monkeys run far ahead of the net, and Cecil is struggling mightily to get this set of monkeys in the net. At 5, Cecil is holding his head. The marvelous monkey collecting mobile is upside down, filled with mud, and its engine is dead. He says, "It's time to cook, but I'm so tired, and even more, I'm uninspired." because my plan to catch this set of pesky monkeys has completely backfired. As Mr. Crocodile sits in his kitchen at 6 p.m., he realizes something, and so with all the monkeys present, he pronounces these words: I was rude, with a very bad and unacceptable attitude. And I've thought about this and decided I'd much rather have you as friends than as food. The 5 monkeys now get into Cecil's bed at 7 p.m., and he pulls out the book, Fred's Bedtime Books. In it is a story about Fred, who bumped his head as 5 funny monkeys jumped on his bed. It was the perfect story to share with his newly found friends. At 8 p.m., the crew of 5 monkeys and Cecil, too, wander outside to sing a sweet tune underneath the crocodile moon. Cecil whispers as the 5 walk away, saying, I hope you'll be coming back one day. And now that plan for a new day has been transformed. Mr. Cecil's crocodile planning of time looks like this now, because he's used his time to make new friends. So in our hearts here, and with our hearts and voices at home, let us join in singing our Doxology.
Praise God for love, we all will share. Praise God for healing everywhere. Praise God for love, good to be. Praise God for truth that makes us.
We are grateful for all the ways in which you support us and one another. By offering your time, talent, and treasure to this community, you help us serve the members, friends, and wider community of this congregation. As part of that service, we share our general offering each week with organizations that are in harmony with our values, those who do work in the world that brings us ever closer to becoming and creating the beloved community. Our offering today will be shared with literacy volunteers of Central Connecticut. Since 1978, Literacy Volunteers of Central Connecticut, known by the acronym of LVCC, has offered adults free tutoring to improve their English, reading, and writing skills. Each year, they serve over 350 persons individually and in small group settings, including parent and child groups. They rely on over 150 dedicated and caring volunteers that they train to provide the tutoring and support students need to reach their goals. In the past year, these are their statistics. 202 students obtained and retained employment. 28 students received their GED, diploma, or other certification. 6 obtained citizenship. 114 students increased their involvement in their children's educational activities. 213 students improved their reading and writing skills. To give to this agency electronically, please use the QR code on your order of service, the links in the description, or those on our website to make your donation to our offering. Here in the sanctuary, our offering will now be gratefully received.
I could say time about it. First thing that I'd like to do, save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, I'd save every day, treasure, and then again I would spend them with you. There never seems to be enough time to do the things you want to do when you find them. And I've looked around enough to know you're the one I want to go through time with. If I had a box just for wishes, dreams that never come true, box would be empty except for the memory of how they were answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things we want to do once we find them. I think we've been around enough to know the ones we want to go through time with. Oh, there never seems to be enough time to do the things we want to do once we find them. And I've been around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with. You're the one I want to go through time with.
I gratefully accept these gifts in the name of this community and our wider community. Thank you, and blessed be. As we have gathered this day, I call on us to keep in our collective hearts Sally S. She went to Yale New Haven Hospital on Wednesday for help with her continued weight loss. She appreciates this community's support and continual care. I bring you good news from Julio Jr. His recovery from his back surgery is moving along quite well. He is now able to walk a substantial longer distance. He can now go all the way around the block instead of just down to his mailbox and back. He looks forward to being with us as soon as he is able. I'd also like to call to our consciousness the people of Afghanistan as the Taliban keep invading more and more cities and terrorize more and more of them. Since today we are examining time and how it is seen in our lives, I share with you a wonderful prayer from our colleague Tina Marquez called Call from the Past, Present, and Future. From the heights of the Andes, the jungle, and the desert, from the depth of the sea, from a time that was, from a time that stretches beyond our memory, we are called. Our histories stretch back to the first peoples, the first steps, the collision of worlds to abrupt beginnings, all wanderers of this land. We have inherited the unfinished labor of our ancestors, of those that came before us. We are called to continue the work. The voices of our people call us now. The world harbors their joys and their sorrows. We hear the cries of our people demanding justice in the streets. In that call, we recognize the voices of those who wandered in the desert, the border crossers, the navigators, the justice seekers, the dreamers, and the hopeful. We weave our story to the story of our ancestors right here, right now. We are in the midst of responding to the call that comes from all corners of this land, from the south, the north, the east, and the west. We are called to sustain the work. The voices of those who will be call us, a reminder of who we need to be. In the weaving of our story to the web of life, we must remember that we must not cut the strings, for there are others coming after us, others with tender hearts and strong wills, with creative determination, those who will live in the house of tomorrow. Their vision escapes us, yet we are called to prepare their road, to leave behind possibility and foundations upon which they'll build a better tomorrow. We are called to create new opportunities. Please join me now in a time of silence where we can hold both our spoken and unspoken prayers and dreams together. In our hearts here and with our hearts and voices at home, let us join in singing Spirit of Life.
Our first reading this morning is from A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. We have seen how our views of time have changed over the years. Up to the beginning of this century, people believed in absolute time. That is, each event could be labeled by a number called time in a unique way, and all good clocks would agree on the time interval between two events. However, the discovery that the speed of light appeared the same to every observer, no matter how he was moving, led to the theory of relativity. And in that, one had to abandon the idea that there was a unique, absolute time. Instead, each observer would have his own measure of time as accorded by a clock that he carried. Clocks carried by different observers would not necessarily agree. Thus, time became a more personal concept relative to the observer who measured it. When one tried to unify gravity with quantum mechanics, one had to introduce the idea of imaginary time. Imaginary time is indistinguishable from directions in space. If one can go north, one can turn around and head south. Equally, if one can go forward in imaginary time, one ought to be able to turn around and go backward. This means there can be no important difference between the forward and backward directions of imaginary time. On the other hand, when one looks at real time, there is a very big difference between the forward and backward directions, as we all know. There are at least 3 arrows of time that do distinguish the past from the future. They are the thermodynamic arrow, the direction of time in which disorder increases, the psychological arrow, the direction in time in which we remember the past, not the future, and the cosmological arrow, the direction in time in which the universe expands rather than contracts. Here ends the first reading. Our second reading is from The Timekeeper by Mitch Albom. History does not show it, but as Dorr grew older, he dabbled in every form of time measurement that science would later credit to others. Long before the Egyptian obelisks, Dorr was catching shadows. Long before the Greek clepsydras, Dorr was measuring water. He would invent the first sundial. He would create the first clock, even the first calendar. Ahead of his time, that's a phrase we use. Dorr was ahead of everyone. Consider the word time. We use so many phrases with it. Pastime, waste time, kill time, lose time, in good time, it's about time, take your time, save time, a long time, right on time, out of time, mind the time, be on time, spare time, keep time, stall for time. There are as many expressions with time as there are minutes in a day. But once, there was no word for it at all, because no one was counting. Then door began, and everything changed.
Just gotta talk.
So today we're looking at the idea, concept, whatever you want to call it, in relationship to time. Played around with a title for this sermon, and one of the titles I ended up with was, How Do You Experience Time? Another title was, Or Some Experiences of Time. And my thoughts for this day come from an evolutionary process, which ironically is set in time. In my daily evolution, I hear about time often. I hear statements like, you know, Chaplain Joy, I don't have much time. Or, this illness has robbed me of so much time with my friends and family. I'll hear from ministerial colleagues about time. I don't know how much more of my time I can give to this pandemic. It's driving me crazy. It's eating away at my ability to be the quality minister I want to be. Or I'll hear from some of you in reference to the pandemic or in reference to your special vacation that you just enjoyed. The statements go like this: this has been an amazing time away. We had so much fun. I forgot that we were even in time. Or it has been a time when so much has been disrupted and changed. I wish I could get some of that time back. My wife, Beth, in her Masters of Fine Art graduation ceremony, spoke about Chronos time and Kairos time. Chronos time is our clock time, the absolute time that Stephen Hawking was talking about. And Kairos time, she defined as those moments of awareness that exist in time but are not limited by time. Her speech began with this sentence: time is a strange thing. Time is indeed a very strange thing. We not only hear people speak of it, but we watch movies set in time. We call some of those movies historical, some of them futuristic, others of them sci-fi, which means it's out there and we have no idea where it's set in time. We also, as we have done this day, listen to music about time. We ask, like James Taylor, what's going on in this time? Or we set our thoughts on differing ways we experience time with our mother, our brother, our sister, our father, during dying times, war times, or on picket line times. We also hear the lament of trying to capture time from Jim Croce. So if only I could save time in a bottle, the first thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend time with you. Mr. Cecil Crocodile Esquire learned that planning out each day, hour by hour by hour, doesn't always work out the way one would have imagined or dreamed it would be. That perhaps showering those around you with love is a better way to make plans. And thus, time, in these outlined experiences, is indeed very complex and very strange. Did you know that the word time in the Standard Dictionary appears under the category of noun, verb, and adjective, and that as a noun it has 14 definitions, and each of those has a sub-definition, by the way. The word itself came into being before the 12th century and meant the measured or measurable period during which an action, process, or condition exists or continues. Thus, from the beginning, the word time has been related to the concept of change. I'd like to point out that time, according to those who study its origins, its ramifications, its meanings, and those are our physicists, our philosophers, and our theologians, from Aristotle to the present, these folks have contemplated, written treatises, and argued for hours and days and months and years about the concept of time. Time seems to be one of those elusive variables that is given a definition, and then it's quickly transmuted into yet a newer, better, more accurate definition. These scholars of time have noted that while we experience time as psychologically real, time is not fundamentally real at all. Some physicists define time as the progression of events from the past to the present to the future, very much like Teresa in our prayer this morning of the call from the past to the present to the future. They also add the sidebar that basically, if a system is unchanging, it is considered timeless. So my question to you is, how many things have you experienced that are unchanging or timeless? The invention of the sundial began in 1500 BC. And the Egyptians began measuring time then. However, their time was very different than the time we measure with our devices. The Egyptians did, for their time, and for 3 millennia later, use the sundial for measuring as their instrument, and their basic measurement of time was daylight, the period of daylight. Now, we might have a little problem with that these days, because right now, our daylight lasts a long time. Winter comes and our daylight shrinks. Again, the concept of time, it is a changing. Today, we have become more accurate, or have we really? Because we measure time now in seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, years, centuries, millennial. And ways are all the ways of measuring them. And we have these little digital things called cell phones that can measure them even farther, smaller, micro nanoseconds and all of that. Nonetheless, however we measure time, it's been around for a very long time. And it has always been intertwined with that concept of change. I read an article in preparation for this, which was called The Illusion of Time, What's Real? And that author summed it up this way. Why is time so controversial? It feels real. It's always there, inexorably moving forward. Time has flow, runs like a river. Time has direction. It's always advancing. Time has order, one thing after another. Time has duration, a quantifiable period between events. Time has a privileged present, only now is real. Time seems to be the universal background through which all events proceed, such that order can be sequenced and durations measured. Time may not be what time seems. Julian Barber, a British physicist, says, a succession of pictures and a succession of snapshots changing continuously one into another, this is time. To Barber, change is real, but time is not. Time is only a reflection of change. Another vantage point of time would be that of any person in our prison system. One prisoner I'd like to bring to you is Ian Manuel, who spent 26 years in prison. However, his prison experience was very unique. From the time he was 13 until the age of 33, he was in prison, but his first 18 years were spent in solitary confinement. Ian writes in his memoir, "My time will come." During these years of solitary, I cherished my aloneness. I was rarely bored. Boredom, in addition to the intensity of incarceration, would have made me lose my mind, might have driven me to suicide. I spent hours on end imagining, connected to Stephen Hawking's imagined time. Most of my time, writes Manuel, I spent swimming in my imagination. I wrote rap lyrics, read poets like Langston Hughes and Maya Angelou, imagining myself in competition with them, trying to outdo them. Today, in our present time, Ian Manuel is an activist and poet who is working toward justice in the prison system, especially toward removing the possibility of incarcerated folks being left in solitary for longer than 15 days. Madeleine Lang, speaking through one of her characters in her famous book, The Wrinkle in Time, Meg's father says, "We can't leave her, and we must stay together. We must not be afraid to take time. Time is different here, anyhow. Our time, inadequate though it is, at least is straightforward. It may not even be fully one-dimensional because it can't move back and forth on its line, only ahead. But at least it's consistent in its direction. Time on Kamazats seems to be inverted, turned on itself. So I, your father, have no idea whether I was imprisoned in that column for centuries or for minutes. Time is indeed a very strange thing. Ultimately, whether you measure time in wrinkles like Madeline Lang, in evolutionary visions like Steve Hawking, in chronos or clock time like Mr. Cecil Crocodile, or in solitary time like Ian Manuel. Regardless of how we measure or experience it, our time on earth at this very moment has a purpose and a unique calling that we must answer. The name you give to time, each and every day, the answers you give to the question of how much time do I have, really? Or am I using my time wisely? Those answers are yours to focus on, yours to discover. So may your moments, your calls of time, help you become better, fill you with multiple opportunities to grow, to reflect, to discover, to forgive, and to love more fully. May the time each one of us has, as strange as it may seem sometimes, may our time be spent well, wisely, and wondrously. May it be so. And now, please join in singing at home and here in your hearts, hymn number 1057 in the teal hymnal, Go Lifted Up.
Go lifted up. Love, bless your word. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into peace and the brightness of day. Lifted up, love, bless your boy. Moonlight, starlight, guide your journey into and the brightness of day, the brightness of day.
And now let us speak together our Unison Benediction. Engage with the world in peace. Have courage. Hold on to what is good. Return to no person evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the suffering, and honor all beings. And there is a coffee hour, but it's outside this morning, so that everyone who is here can join that coffee hour. And those of you who have been with us online, please switch over to Zoom so that you can join others in the coffee hour there. Thank you for being here this day, and may you enjoy your time this day.